Hey everyone, I'm Phil Albertelli, and this, of course, is The Week in Doubt, a podcast for atheists, agnostics, and whoever. So, wow, November 1st. Is this the Celtic, the Celtic New Year's Day? I was just playing the song. I believe it's Halloween 2. So I'm a Danzig fan. And I think I was a teenager when I first discovered Danzig's solo work. And then I loved his music so much that I went back and checked out the whole catalog of Misfits. To me, the real Misfits are the Misfits with Glenn Dent. So I checked out the whole Misfits catalog and absolutely loved that stuff too. Then I discovered that he had a band, which people usually call or refer to as Samhain or Samhain. Obviously, the proper pronunciation of the ancient pagan New Year festival that's thought to have inspired or influenced our modern-day Halloween. The proper pronunciation is Samhain, but it looks like Samhain or Samhain. And Danzig does know the proper pronunciation because he uses that word a lot in his music. He always pronounces it correctly as Samhain. But I don't know if he intends for the band name to be Samhain or if he intends for it to be pronounced Samhain or Samhain. Because that does sound kind of like a badass band name, you know? And I think Samhain was also, I remember way back, I'm definitely dating myself here, aging Gen Xer here. And when I was a kid, there were two different Ghostbusters cartoons. One was like more faithful to the movies, and then one was just like bizarre, like very loosely associated. And I remember someone else talking about this and how I think it had something to do with someone else holding the copyright or whatever it was. But there was a Ghostbusters cartoon that was fairly loyal to the movies, and they had an enemy that they were fighting one time. This evil spirit, like Halloween spirit, and his name was Samhain. And he had a big evil jack-o'-lantern head and kind of like a specter type of cloak or body or whatever. Yeah, probably didn't need to bring that up, but why the hell not? Day after Halloween, and I meant to do a Halloween episode last night, so I'm kind of making up for lost time. Actually, originally, and I'm tired of making a lie around myself, so I try not to promise anything, that I'll get something out by a certain deadline. So hopefully I didn't promise you guys a Halloween documentary this year, but I know I at least said I'd try to get one out. I did make an effort, tried to give it the old college try, or maybe the old community college try at least. But I did pick a topic and I started digging in. And I was going to do a last-minute documentary about black cats. Talk a little bit about the genetics, what makes a black cat black and all that. Something to do with the recessive tabby gene, I think. Something like that. Anyway, and I just knew I wasn't going to make it in time. Yeah, so obviously the lion's share of the episode, cat pun not intended, was going to be about this, the superstition surrounding black cats. And actually, while I was researching it, I did find that there's actually some cultures that did or do consider black cats to be a sign of good luck. And I think one example was certain Celtic civilizations had viewed black cats as a sign of good luck. And that kind of takes us back to Samhain, the pagan New Year. I think there may have been several Celtic societies that observe Samhain, but I think traditionally it's most often associated with ancient Ireland. And you guys are probably already aware, but of course there's a number of major Christian holidays that are kind of like Christian pagan mashups. Christmas, Easter, Halloween, of course. And the thinking is that there is this kind of tendency in the days of the early church or whatever, to kind of graft Christianity onto existing pagan traditions and observances. You know what I mean? In a way, I think that kind of made it easier or more appealing for pagans to kind of switch over to Christianity, to make that shift. So you had this kind of Christianization of existing pagan customs. In the case of Easter, you have these clearly pagan fertility symbols like hares and eggs. And I think it's thought that the name Easter comes from this kind of Germanic fertility goddess, Eostra or Eoster, something like that. If you're a fan of American Gods, you might remember that there was actually a character, Eoster or Eostra, on that television. Is that coming back for a third season? I don't know. I dug that. Anyway, and then with Christmas, of course, you can trace pagan influences all the way back to the ancient Roman Empire with Saturnalia and Mithras, etc. And then, of course, later on, you had Nordic influences. In the case of Halloween, of course, Samhain. But that stuff's always fascinated me. If you dig that stuff too, I did just re-release the first ever Week in Doubt Halloween special. It might only be like, I don't know, maybe it's in between like 8 and 12 minutes long, I don't know. But if I'm proud of anything, I try to take pride in all the content, that I release to you guys. But I'm a neurotic dude who can never, please myself, and I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to my own content. But if there's any content of mine that I'm probably the most proud of, that I feel like this is pretty good stuff, even by my own harsh standards on myself, you know what I mean? It's probably the documentary specials. Like, if I had to gut my whole library, which I was talking recently about how if I want to expand the show to other platforms, I might have to convert all my old episodes to MP3, and I was talking about possibly gutting a bunch of old content. If I had to gut a bunch of my old content and I could only save a handful of episodes, it would definitely be the documentary specials. And so every year I re-release that Halloween special, and there were follow-up Halloween specials I did, like the Salem Witch Trials mini documentary. I think I released that yesterday, or re-released it. And then there's the one on the Necronomicon. I did one on Hell Houses. I think I did one on demonic possession. So I love that stuff. Oh yeah, I was just one final word on Danzig. Yes, I'm a huge Danzig fan, a fan of his music, but you don't have to tell me. I know supposedly in real life, guy's kind of a dick, so they say. But still, absolutely love his music. And, quote-unquote Samhain, or however you're supposed to pronounce the band name, that might be my favorite iteration of Danzig. My favorite Danzig phase was his time with that band. I guess you would call it like horror punk, but it's so dark. It's so dark and dirty, and I don't know how to explain it, but it's so morbid. I love that music. That's probably my favorite Danzig phase is Samhain. But before I forget, speaking of content that I'm not exactly pleased with, you know what I mean? There's sometimes when I'll do an unscripted episode, and after the fact, I think there might be some things I like about it, other things that I just feel like I was just rambling and not really saying much, or maybe I got some stuff wrong, because I was working without a net. And sometimes I'll actually take episodes like that and I'll release them on YouTube, but I won't put much effort into the visuals, and I'll just use like a still image and put audio only. And I'll sometimes self-deprecatingly refer to them as crap casts. It's like, I'm kind of warning you. Probably not my finest stuff here, but if you enjoy my unscripted, ramblings, and that's your thing, you can still click on it and listen to it. I almost did that with with last week's episode, but I didn't even bother. There were some things I liked about last week's episode. I enjoyed talking about Borat 2 and some other things, but I was kind of like, I think that might have been over an hour long, and I was just feeling kind of iffy about it. But, and I don't know if the person wants me to give their last name on the show, so I'll play it safe, and first name Tony, but a longtime friend and listener of the show. And he got in touch and let me know that he really dug that episode. And and this does kind of resonate with people sometimes, because I kind of went into my own neuroses, and, sometimes I kind of bear all giving my, regarding my kind of struggles with things like depression and, like obsessive worrying, or, my migraines, whatever it is, you know what I mean? And I think some people appreciate that honesty, and it resonates with them rather. So I think he dug that, but it made my day. I always like hearing from listeners, and when they let me know that they really enjoyed a specific episode, and, that it kind of, it meant something to them to hear me talk about my own struggles. So hats off to Tony. Thanks for getting in touch, man. Much appreciated. But if you did want to seek out that episode, the audio version is out there. You can go to iTunes or Podbean and track it down. And there was something that I was going to mention in passing. I'll try not to spend too much time on it. But The Mandalorian Season 2 has arrived. Or they released the first episode of Season 2. And I remember, I think last year, I dug the first season of The Mandalorian so much that I kind of dedicated a whole episode to doing a review on it. And I think it went over like a lead balloon. I don't think it generated too much interest. So I don't know if maybe I don't have a lot of Star Wars fans in the audience. I don't know. So I won't spend too much time on it. But yeah, I enjoyed the first episode of Season 2. I wasn't sure at first because it starts off where we see two Gamorrean guards, and I'm actually not like a huge Star Wars nerd, but I just like sci-fi and fantasy in general, and so I've seen all the Star Wars movies, and I have a pretty good knowledge of that, universe or whatever, but it's not like I'm a super fanatical Star Wars fan, but I know enough. So there were two Gamorrean guards fighting, and already I sound like an effing nerd, but if you don't remember, the Gamorrean guards are the big barbaric green-skinned pig people in Jabba's palace who acted as guards, appropriately enough, and Luke chokes them with the Force. And one thing that's great about The Mandalorian is that Jon Favreau, basically the guy behind the series, an actor, director. I think I first became aware of Jon Favreau from the movie Swingers. Remember, he used to kind of, I think he was real life friends with Vince Vaughn, and they, made some movies together or whatever. And so, turns out and I say this affectionately, he's a huge Star Wars nerd. And he's big on kind of getting things right and being true to the original movies and whatnot. So there's a lot of great fan service in The Mandalorian. A lot of the creatures and races and locations, etc., from the original movies. Lots of little Easter eggs and, nods to the original movies. And so so Season 2 starts off where we see the Mandalorian, and I think people try to say this as an insult, but I think it should be seen as a compliment, Some people try to say that Star Wars is it's not real sci-fi, it's just a space western. And I think it's a combination of both. I think it's a space western, which is pretty damn cool in my book, and it's also real sci-fi. But so, definitely The Mandalorian has that kind of, like, old Western gunslinger type of feel, the character, The Mandalorian. And so he kind of enters this kind of den of iniquity or whatever, where people are watching and betting on this fight, this duel between two Gamorrean guards. And so you have these two giant pig men with giant axes, but there's some kind of like force field thing going on, so they never really hit each other with the blades or cut each other. And I thought that was too watered down even for Disney or Star Wars, because damn, in the original Star Wars movie, we had arms and hands getting lopped off and everything. Why not show a little pigman blood, you know what I mean? But I got over that, and I quickly got pulled into the episode, and I absolutely loved it. And it was kind of formulaic, you know, the Mandalorian's kind of like the mysterious stranger that kind of moseys into town, and then the town people need him to do something for him. So kind of like this, almost like the generic formula to like a D&D quest or something. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can't get much more formulaic, and yet it worked. I really dug it. I really dug the episode. And of course, Baby Yoda, the child, is still around. And it's funny, I have a close female friend who's really not into Star Wars or anything at all, but she is absolutely obsessed with Baby Yoda just because of how cute the thing is. But that's all I'll say about the Mandalorian for now. But why not? Let's go over some news stories. And this first one is just in time for the Halloween season. Well, technically, we're a day past Halloween. But it's entitled Halloween Hilarity. Ghosts Make People Gay. And it's dated October 30th. And this is from Pathos, but it's not from the Friendly Atheist. It's from the Free Thinker blog or channel. And it looks like it's by Barry Duke. Okay, so it shows an embedded photo of some old-looking dude, and that says, the geezer above is His Holiness, Dr. Jayan Balaji Athavali, I think, 78 years old, once an atheist, but now a guru who heads the Spiritual Science Research Foundation, which claims that people become gay when they are possessed by ghosts. Okay, so I'm already foreseeing that there might be some kind of infinite regress problem here. If people become gay because they're possessed by ghosts, and I guess it would be logical to assume, if we can use the word logic when talking about ghosts, that the ghosts themselves are gay. Now, were the ghosts gay when they were living? And if so, were they made gay by being possessed by gay ghosts? And were those gay ghosts gay when they were living? See what I mean? Quite the conundrum. But let's see. Okay. I did some digging into the SSRF after I received an email today with a link to Yahoo report written by Josh Milton and headed, completely legitimate scientific study claims 85% of gay people are possessed by ghosts. According to the report, gay ghosts are quote-unquote murderous, say quote-unquote bad words, and enjoy being, once again, quote-unquote, drink up, nude among others. And so the author of the article replies, fabulous. Now, here's the spooky thing. The link provided by Milton to SSRF's research regarding gays and ghosts. Is that like Dungeons and Dragons? Is it like, what was that game, that video game when I was a kid? I think they released it for the iPhone. It was like Ghosts and Goblins, but then I think there was also like Ghouls and Ghosts, and they were pretty much the same game. Research regarding gays and ghosts has been spirited away and no longer works. But thanks to a valuable resource called Wayback Machine, I found an archived article entitled Symptoms of Ghosts Affecting or Possessing a Person. This informs me that while about 30% of the world's population is possessed by ghosts, LGBT folk are more likely to be spook magnets. Okay, spook magnets. The main reason behind the gay orientation of some men is that they are possessed by female ghosts. It is the female ghost in them that is attracted to other men. Conversely, the attraction to females experienced by some lesbians is due to the presence of male ghosts in them. The ghost consciousness overpowers the person's normal behavior to produce the homosexual attraction. Spiritual research has shown that the cause for homosexual preferences lie predominantly in the spiritual realm. Physical causes 5% due to hormonal changes, psychological causes 10%, having an experience with a person of the same sex as a teenager or young adult that was pleasurable and therefore wanting to experience it again. But spiritual causes 85%. Mainly ghosts. The quote-unquote good news is that these phantoms can be banished if the afflicted do a series of spiritual ghostbuster exercises, including chanting. Details in a chart are helpfully provided. SSRS warns that among the many negative effects of ghost possession is quote-unquote reduction of faith in God and the quote-unquote drink up desire to strangle someone. That's pretty specific. And so then the author says, being an atheist and gay, SSRS researchers would classify me as being doubly possessed. And right now I have an irresistible urge to strangle Dr. Athavali and SSRS's editor, Sean Clark. And so, yeah, I had trouble reading that with a straight face, and it's so silly. It was like a fun article to read. But on a serious note, I mean, so like baked in the cake here, you know, in this worldview, is a lack of acceptance of gay people, the promotion of superstition. And this is the same kind of, you know, superstitious and bigoted thinking that gets you things like gay conversion therapy, people being killed for being the wrong sexual orientation by religious fundamentalists, etc. It's this alienation and demonization of people based on sexual orientation. When what? You have grown adults who are attracted to people of the same sex. Why not let them live their lives? It's all based in superstitious religious bigotry, you know what I mean? And I don't know if it's irresponsible of me to link like this guy with the most extreme cases, you know, where you have people actually being killed for their sexual orientation. But in both cases, you have this kind of othering and demonization of people based on sexual orientation. And it's a bigotry that's rooted in or driven by religious belief. And this kind of reminds me of something that I was watching earlier today. If you're like me, you know, maybe you might cycle through which YouTube content creators you tend to watch at a given time. Recently, for some reason, I've been watching a lot of Cenk Uyghur's nephew, Hassan Piker. And I guess he's become pretty successful as a Twitch streamer. And then there's people who take clips from his, you know, incredibly long Twitch streams and, you know, repackage them for YouTube or whatever and release these short little clips. And there was one clip I was watching today where I guess he was getting frustrated that there were kind of atheists popping up in his chat. And I think he might technically be an atheist or at least an agnostic. But there was something about, I don't know, I guess something about these particular atheists in his chat that was kind of getting on his nerves. And I guess someone in the chat was talking about religious persecution in the United States, you know, that you can face as an atheist or growing up, you know, as an atheist in a religious household. And I don't know if that was a specific example, but that's what came to mind to me, because it seemed like Hassan was kind of trying to downplay or trivialize what an atheist can go through in the States, you know what I mean? And he kind of scoffed at it, saying, you know, mentioning how he's from Turkey, and, you know, obviously there's parts of the world where, like I was just saying, maybe you could end up getting killed for being gay. Technically, you could probably end up getting killed for being gay in the U.S. too, if you catch yourself in the, you know, in the wrong place at the wrong time or whatever, you know. And I'm not laughing, obviously, because that amuses me. It's very disturbing. I'm laughing kind of gallows humor because I think it's darkly true. And it reminds me of, there's the case of, is it Brandon Tina? Remember the person who was the inspiration for the Hilary Swank movie, Boys Don't Cry? She was technically trans, but there's been cases of young gay men being killed in the United States, you know. But he was kind of laughing off how there really isn't any type of real religious persecution that atheists have to worry about in the States compared to, you know, what people have to go through in certain Muslim nations or whatever. And I'm thinking, you know, it doesn't have to be a pissing match where we try to prove who has it worse or whatever, you know what I mean? Just because we're not living on a part of the map where maybe you can get killed or beheaded for being an atheist or whatever, or imprisoned, that doesn't delegitimize what people go through in the States. I think primarily I'm referring to having to go through a really, you know, like a hardcore religious upbringing, a kind of fundamentalist upbringing, or even like I wouldn't call my parents religious fundamentalists, but they were, you know, I had a devout Catholic upbringing. And I think there's still some kind of scars or lingering effects from being raised to take certain aspects of the religion literally, namely the belief in hell, and that if you kind of go astray, you can end up burning for all of time, you know what I mean? And that there's these supernatural powers vying for control over you, you know, a god who's constantly watching everything you do, and you know, the devil who's trying to constantly lead you astray, and you have to watch out for what music you listen to or what movies you watch, and there's always demons out to get. That can take a big toll on someone. And imagine being a young gay kid raised in a super Christian household that condemns, you know, homosexuality. Imagine the toll that can take on your psyche as a kid, you know what I mean? And I think in a lot of ways, this is still a country drowning in religious superstition. I still can't imagine an openly atheistic president getting elected anytime soon. Even Trump has to pay lip service to religion, you know what I mean? And fraternize with wingnuts like Paula White and all that. And I think he's known Paula White for a long time. And so I don't know if he does have any sincere religious belief or not. But I think a lot of what he's doing is just he knows for political expedience, you know, he has to placate the religious demographic out there, especially the religious right. So like I said, you know, we're a nation drowning in religious superstition, and on top of it, science denialism seems to be on the rise. Wow, what a time to be alive. And that kind of reminds me of there's a popular atheist, a young guy on YouTube. I think he goes by the name Genetically Modified Skeptic. I think that's it. And maybe a month or so ago, he released an episode in which he talks about how Carl Sagan tried to warn. You know, I think he's citing the book specifically, The Demon Haunted World. So what was that, back in the 90s that came out? But how even back then, Carl Sagan was trying to warn of the dangers of, let's say you have a technologically advanced society, but the average person might not necessarily be, you know, that well educated or that knowledgeable. But everyone has easy access to communication platforms or whatever, you know what I mean? So simultaneously, you can have a society that's very technologically advanced, but you can have people who aren't necessarily the best or the brightest using that technology, that society's technological advancements to broadcast their own kind of backwards ideas. And you can get these backwards ideas that gain traction, and you can have this kind of dumbed down echo chamber effect. And that's kind of what I see going on, is where, you know, everyone has a little supercomputer in their pocket. Everyone has a smartphone or a tablet. They can easily communicate with people on the other side of the globe. They can instantaneously make their every thought known or whatever, via social media. And so you have people using these, you have people utilizing this, all this amazing communications technology, you know what I mean? But you have this kind of dumbed down echo chamber effect. And I think that's how you get these quickly spreading conspiracy theories and the rest of it. And it's ironically, you can have people using high tech to spread science denialism. You know what I mean? And I think in conjunction with that, Sagan was also warning about, and I think Genetically Modified Skeptic actually plays some footage or audio of Sagan talking. And it's funny because it's dated, so all the references are very dated, because he uses examples like Beavis and Butthead to try to make a point that he thought that even at that time, I don't know what would have been the early or 90s or whatever, that there seemed to be a kind of glorification or celebration of, or idolatry or idolizing of stupidity. You know what I mean? And I actually thought that Sagan was going a little too far or taking things a little too seriously with that. You know what I mean? Because I think, laughing at the moron or whatever, or the stooge, that's kind of this timeless theme that we've seen in entertainment. I don't know, maybe even back to like Punch and Judy, or long before that, way back into ancient comedy or something. There's always been this thing where we enjoy laughing at kind of absurd and comedic, moronic figures or whatever. So I thought he might have been going a little too far with saying that like society is actually idolizing Beavis and Butthead as if taking them seriously and aspiring to be like that. Although, in fairness, to play devil's advocate, I think there probably is a type of thing where you can have young people who think these characters are really cool and try to mimic those characters, you know what I mean? So that it does, in a weird way, become kind of cool to be dumb and disinterested, I guess. And I apologize for the noise. My computer fan's been acting up recently, and we also have what sounds like torrential New England rain out there. So anyway, maybe some of you will actually find it soothing. And I know that sounds horribly elitist. You know what I mean? That the plebs have iPhones and they're ruining, ruining civilization for us. And so I'm not saying that we should take all the stupid people's smartphones away or whatever, you know what I mean? No, and I don't know what the solution is. I think if anything, the solution needs to be more education. You know what I mean? And getting more people in general interested in science and critical thinking, so they're less likely to fall for conspiracy theories and superstitious nonsense. But I guess I'll cover at least another story or two. Yeah, maybe I'll do 2 more. I'll cut out some of these because I didn't expect the show to be going on this long. So, looks like the war on Christmas is starting early, which is pretty much to be expected with Fox News. And so this is from The Friendly Atheist. It's entitled Fox News' Jeanine Pirro. Thanks to Trump, I say Merry Christmas louder now. And I can barely hear myself over that rain, so I hope this is coming through. And it's dated October 31st, which seems kind of fitting since Jeanine Pirro's kind of a scary lady. And she really scares me, man. It scares me to know that she was an actual judge in charge of, deciding people's fates. It blows my mind because she is, let's not mince words, she's a conspiratorially minded wingnut. Scary stuff. So it starts, silly you thought Republicans just wanted to be able to say Merry Christmas in public without feeling like they were making some kind of mistake by excluding non-Christians. Nope, and a reminder that the fictional war on Christmas will never end, no matter what happens. Fox News host Janine Pirro told a crowd at the Faith and Freedom Coalition voter rally in Texas recently that anyone saying Merry Christmas has to also stare people down in the process. And so here's a quote. "I remember when Donald Trump was running and he talked about bringing back Merry Christmas," Pirro said. "I live in New York. I'm like, yeah, nobody says it. You know, you try to be politically correct because Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, this, that, the atheists, the agnostics, whatever. And then I said, he's right. This guy who's never been in politics, a New York City billionaire who builds buildings for a living, who fights the swamp in New York City, he's got a better handle on it than I do. And since he came in, I say Merry Christmas, and I say it a decibel louder now," Pirro declared. "And I stared them down, and so should you." And I've always thought this war on Christmas thing is absolutely ridiculous. And this has been going on for years now. This goes all the way back to, you know, when O'Reilly was still on the air at Fox News, and he had been doing it for years. And I basically try to drive home the same point every year, you know. I'm an atheist, a non-believer, choose your label. And like many atheists or people who are, you know, secular or only nominally or culturally Christian, you know, I say Merry Christmas all the time. I love Christmas music. I love going Christmas shopping. When I do my grocery shopping every week, you know, during the holiday season, I love going into the Christmas aisle, you know, and seeing all the Christmas themed stuff, all the Christmas candy. And you see the word Christmas everywhere. You know, they're selling Christmas cards. Like I said, Christmas candy. There's even really like super Christy Christian Christmas candy. Where I do my shopping at Stop and Shop, and you'll actually see like Christmas cards, like really Christian Christmas cards made out of chocolate with the whole cross and, you know, this Jesus and this and that. And I usually wait to see what people say to me. When I'm checking out, maybe the person behind the counter says Merry Christmas. I love it when they do, and I say Merry Christmas back. If they say Happy Holidays instead, that's cool too. I'll say Happy Holidays back, or maybe just you too, you know what I mean? And they try and make it seem like these kind of salutations like season's greetings or happy holidays are these super lefty, overly politically correct replacements for Merry Christmas. But when you look back in history, you know, even if you look at old like album art and old greeting cards, you can see happy holidays, season's greetings, and even, like I was just looking this up, the phrase or salutation, season's greetings, goes all the way back to the Victorian era, the 19th century. And I guess it started off as with the season's greetings, and you would find that on greeting cards, etc. And then it was shortened to the season's greetings. And then by the 1920s, it had become season's greetings. And it says it has been and this is from Wikipedia. I know, leave me alone. It has been a greeting card fixture ever since. Several White House Christmas cards, including U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower's 1955 card, have featured the phrase. And, you know, I've been trying not to get overly political on the show, and I hate to bring up Trump yet again, but it's hard to avoid because both Trump and at least one of his sons, Don Jr., maybe it was Eric, I don't remember, but they have openly boasted about how Donald Trump has made it safe to say Merry Christmas again. When the hell did people ever stop saying Merry Christmas? Like I said, I'm a damn atheist and I say Merry Christmas and I love doing so. I love Christmas, you know what I mean? And like I said, there's no need to get worked up about people saying happy holidays or season's greetings. That shit has been on greeting cards going all the way back to the Victorian era, or happy, you know, in the case of happy holidays, I think season's greetings you're more likely to find on greeting cards. But happy holidays, that's been a holiday season salutation for at least decades, you know what I mean? So it's just political fear-mongering. You know, it's absolute garbage, the whole war on Christmas thing. And so, yeah, I'll do one more story. And this is just kind of a really fun, light story. And this comes from a site called Spoon Tamago, whatever the hell that is. I'm probably butchering it. And I don't know if it's pronounced Jimmy or Jimmy. I don't know. But there's this Halloween custom in Japan, and it just cracks me up, where the goal is to wear like a kind of very toned down, kind of mundane costume, so much so that you have to explain to people what the hell it is. But it's a riot, and it's the type of thing where it'll actually probably be funnier with the images, so I'll be sure to include the images in the YouTube version. But yeah, I found this story yesterday, and it's entitled Japan's Jimmy or Jimmy Mundane Halloween Costumes of 2020. In 2014, a subculture emerged in Japan called Jimmy Halloween, or Mundane Halloween. It was started by a group of adults at Daily Portal Z who kind of wanted to participate in the festivities of Halloween, but were too embarrassed to go all out in witch or zombie costumes. So instead of the flashy and flamboyant costumes they had been seeing gain popularity in Japan, they decided to dress up in mundane everyday costumes, the type of costumes that you have to explain to people and then they say, "Oh, I get it." And so there's a whole list of examples here. And the first one, I actually think, I'm no expert, but I don't know if it necessarily fits the criteria of being a mundane costume. I guess depending on your setting, it could be kind of flamboyant. So it shows a woman dressed in kind of like operating scrubs, and she's carrying two panda bears, stuffed animals, and there's a third one attached to her leg like she's dragging it. And the costume is supposed to be a zookeeper in charge of the pandas. But then the next one, maybe I should read the title first. The name of the costume is An Office Worker Whose Lanyard Name Card Has Flipped Over. And it's just like a guy in a dress shirt, a COVID mask, and a name tag, but the name tag is flipped over. Okay, then the next one is entitled A Guy Who Can Definitely Tell the Difference Between Good and Bad Coffee. And it's just a guy who's kind of smiling, and he's holding a mug. And the next one is entitled A Guy Who Can No Longer Wear His Favorite Shirt Because of the Anime Kimetsu no Yaiba, Demon Slayer. I don't get that one, because I think you have to be familiar with the anime. The next one is a businessman who cut himself shaving but can luckily hide it with his mask. And there's just a guy pulling down his COVID mask a little, and he has a tiny Band-Aid on his upper lip. The next one, an interviewer who's a little too extra with the pens. And it's just a guy sitting at a desk, and he looks like overprotective of his pens. A woman who's regretting telling the cashier that she doesn't need a bag. An overworked woman doing last-minute assignments for a terrible company on the train platform. That guy who's definitely the grill master. That guy who's definitely the grill master at a large barbecue. And then there's one where a woman has kind of her face is all painted up like a blur of colors. That weird thing that sometimes happens with Zoom meeting backgrounds. Anyway, you get it. I thought that was kind of funny. Oh, and the last one's actually pretty funny, too. It's a guy just wearing, like, really ordinary clothing. And he's got, like, maybe a little painted-on mustache. And he's just supposed to look like a random background character from a panel of a comic or a manga, however you pronounce it. Yeah, so there's just, like, a random, really bland-looking person in the background. And he's just a guy wearing a brown coat, a white baseball cap, and his hair is a little messy or something. So the guy went out of his way to look exactly like this background character that no one probably ever noticed. So that was kind of funny too. But with that, I guess I'll call this episode a wrap. As always, thanks for listening, everyone. You know the drill. You can like the Facebook page. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm usually not that active on there, but sometimes I'll tweet interesting links. Or when I publish a new episode, I tweet the link to that on Twitter. If you reach out to me on Twitter, I'll probably reach back, but I'm not a Twitter maniac. You can check out the YouTube channel. Maybe you're doing that now. If you want to help what I do here monetarily, you can go to patreon.com/theweekendoubt and help me out for as little as 99 cents a month. All right, brothers and sisters, until next time.